Good morning, everyone. Here's your Mormon news update for January 28th, 2025. We have some breaking news this morning. As background, let me read a small section from my update from January 22nd. Hearings on updated plans for the proposed McKinney, Texas temple in Fairview, Texas have been delayed. Town officials said the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, widely known as the Mormon Church, did not submit a temple plan in time for the February Planning and Zoning meeting. The church previously planned to present its amended temple plan February 13th after mediating with the town over its rejected permit. Melissa McKinney, communications director for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Dallas, said the church still plans to submit the application, but is taking more time to, quote, make sure everything is in place with what we agreed upon in the mediation, end quote. McKinney said the dates for public hearings for the church's applications will slide, quote, a few weeks, unquote, until their plans are submitted. After I read that, I said the following. This honestly makes me really nervous. The church does not delay just to be nice or to do something nice. In my experience, I haven't seen that. So this makes me a little nervous that they're doing something that nobody except the church is going to like. And guess what? Sadly, I was right. Let's now go to an article for some breaking news from the Dallas News. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints plans to sue the town of Fairview for denying a permit request for the McKinney, Texas temple. In a January 27th letter from attorney Eric Pinker, the church gave the town notice of its intent to file a lawsuit citing the Texas Religious Freedom Restoration Act. The church said the town violated the church's rights to free exercise of religion and non-discrimination in land use regulation. Denying a permit for the McKinney, Texas temple imposed a substantial burden on the church's religious exercise by not allowing it to construct a house of worship that meets the needs of its faith, the letter from church legal representation states. While it continues to be the church's hope that this matter can be worked out amicably, in the face of continued and unreasonable opposition, it appears the church has no choice but to defend its rights in court, the letter states. Bullshit. The church does not want to work anything out, which would mean making some large concessions. They just want to bully this town until they get their way. The church has cited the Federal Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act in past statements in advocating for a religious right to construct the temple. William Christian, an attorney representing the small town of nearly 11,000 people about 30 miles north of Dallas, did not have a statement on the potential lawsuit Monday afternoon. Fairview Mayor Henry Lesner is out of town and could not provide comments on the church's letter. Mayor Pro Tem John Hubbard did not respond to requests for comment Monday. I'm going to issue a call right now. The town of Fairview is going to need our help. If you want to find out how you can help Fairview, go to fairviewunited.net. McKinney said the larger building is needed to accommodate a growing population in North Texas. She said some drive more than 3 hours to get to the Dallas temple, the only one operating in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. A temple near Fort Worth is under construction. We don't need another chapel, she said. We need a temple. A temple allows us to do ceremonies and worship in a different way. Temples are more sacred and holy buildings than meeting houses or chapels, McKinney said. Open for individual worship Tuesday through Saturday. Weddings and sacred ceremonies are held there. It's a place for prayer, meditation, learning, and receiving inspiration from God, she said. McKinney said temple attendance is encouraged in their religious practice, but members do not congregate all at once in a single sanctuary at the temple on Sundays like at many churches. The temple is organized in smaller rooms. We have been incredibly gracious and thoughtful in conceding and attempting to listen to the concerns of the residents to build a significantly scaled-down temple, which frankly is not what our community needs, McKinney said. We need the temple that was originally turned down in August, but we are striving to be good neighbors. They are absolutely not striving to be good neighbors. They could take their billions of dollars and buy a plot of land that is already zoned appropriately for what it is that they want to build. She said the temple could serve about 20,000 to 25,000 church members. And I say, prove it, Melissa. Show us current, accurate attendance numbers and how many of those people are current temple recommend holders. I dare you. McKinney originally said the church did not submit their application for the amended temple January 13th as planned in the terms of settlement because it was taking more time to make sure everything is in place with what was agreed on, which we now know was likely a stall tactic and probably not the truth. The church told an attorney representing the town in a letter January 13th the new application was not filed because of concerns the town would not honor the non-binding agreement that came from November's mediation. In the letter, the church listed examples of conduct that raised concerns about whether the town would keep its end of the deal. Public comments by town officials painted the results of mediation as an ongoing negotiation, not a settled compromise, the letter states. The church cited statements Mayor Lessner gave the Dallas Morning News in previous reporting. This article doesn't say what those statements are, so I went and found the other article. Here's what those statements were. Lessner said after the meeting the negotiation is just the first inning. He hopes the church leaders heard residents' concerns and will keep them in mind when they come to the town's planning and zoning committee next year. To be good neighbors, they need to come in and do something that's acceptable to the town without us operating under the threat of a major lawsuit, Lessner said. I don't think it's over yet. It's kind of in their court to make a change. We will see. Back to the original article. Mayor Lessner also wrote in a January newsletter that town attorneys had said the design agreed on in mediation would likely not be accepted. If this happens, it moves us closer to being sued by the LDS Church and the potential dire financial consequences of that action for the town. Should the town lose in court, Lessner wrote. In my meetings with over 100 residents this week, the sense I get is that the overwhelming number of residents want this to get to court. Why? Because they don't want the temple there. It's not because they don't like Mormons. It's because the temple is huge and the church is trying to force it to be built in an area that is small and country. Mormon church, just build your temple in an area that is already zoned for that height of building. In public meetings, town residents have expressed a willingness to face a lawsuit from the church, which is widely considered one of the wealthiest religious institutions in the world. Put a pin in that because we're going to talk about it in just a minute. I thought y'all were going to be a hero, not only for the residents of Fairview, but for others who have been trampled on by the LDS, said Fairview resident Alicia McKinney to the town council at a December meeting. Y'all were so fearful about a lawsuit, I say bring it. Sadly, I don't know if Alicia understands what they're up against. In a letter to the town, a church attorney stated it would likely take the town to court unless Fairview's leaders reassured them they'll follow through with the settlement reached in November. Town officials declined to meet individually to discuss the statement's status in January. An attorney representing the town wrote in a letter January 17th, "This was not an indication of a rejection of the settlement, but rather out of concern for transparency and for deviating from the normal permit application process." Fairview's attorney wrote, "Strong negative feedback from the public on the terms of the settlement prompted the town to ask the church to further reduce the temple height. The church declined." The town's attorney wrote, but said the council was committed to following the process set out in the settlement. In light of the foregoing circumstances, the church has no confidence that the town will make good on its commitments. The church's January 13th letter states, "The church is further concerned that proceeding as though the town will make good on its commitments will simply prejudice the church's legal rights." The church notified the town of its intent to sue on January 27th. "We just want to be able to worship peacefully, quietly," McKinney said, saying the temple will be a beautiful addition to the community. If that's true, Melissa, then simply buy a different plot of land that is already zoned for this type of building and this height of building and build it there. Its proposed site is situated near other places of worship in the town, and its size was significantly reduced from the original proposal, she said. "The church has attempted to negotiate an agreement in good faith," McKinney said. "We came to mediation. We didn't need to. We have a right to build this temple so that we can practice our faith, but we were trying to be peacemakers and to come to a compromise that we felt was generous." Peacemakers seems to be the new buzzword for the church. I've heard it in a bunch of statements by church leaders lately and in articles published by church-owned news sources. Do they know what the definition of a peacemaker is? Let's read it really quickly. A person who brings about peace, especially by reconciling adversaries. This is not what they are doing. This entire situation actually reminds me of this quote from Satan in the Mormons' own temple ceremony. Let's go to the tape.
"You can buy anything in this world with money."
With that in mind, let's now go to some key points from a recent Mormonism Live episode talking about the widow's Mite report and how insanely wealthy the Mormon Church is. Bill Reel and Radio Free Mormon brought on Spencer Blake Anderson from the Indiana University Accounting Department to help them discuss the report. Spencer's areas of expertise are judgment and decision-making in financial accounting. First off, what is the Widows Mite report? From their own website, this is a volunteer collaboration which aims to increase basic understanding about the finances of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Given low financial transparency and limited sources that are scattered over time, through an increasingly crowdsourced effort, we seek to compile, link, reconcile, and analyze all known sources of church financial information and then present that information in a format that is easy to understand. All of our reports are intended to be as verifiable as possible by relying only on public information. Every estimate in our reports is reviewed for reasonableness by experienced finance professionals. The project has benefited from many anonymous, thoughtful, and skilled contributors. First key point, the church's investment reserves, this is money that, as far as I understand, they are not using for charity, has basically doubled since 2018. In 2018, it was $108 billion, and now it is $206 billion. Spencer clarifies what this investment fund includes.
So when we say investment arm, we just mean all of their for-profit investments, which could include land holdings, real estate, businesses, private ventures, anything that's sort of you would think of as like a for-profit entity or endeavors. Those would all be included under this $206 billion. And so it's not just stocks and bonds, if that makes sense. It's all of the things that we would think of that are not ecclesiastical. The whole reason that Ensign Peak was created was to kind of put all of the for-profit pieces of the church under one umbrella. So the goal of Ensign Peak and everything that we're trying to value here is related to its for-profit endeavors. Now, if it's like a welfare farm, like if it's something that's just done for humanitarian purposes or for religion purposes, those would not be included here.
And then he talks about the total assets of the church when their investment fund and their operating assets are combined.
Our estimate for operating assets for all of those, church-related assets is $87 billion. Okay, so $206 billion of for-profit investment assets and $86 billion or $87 billion of operating assets. So in other words, a lot of people would kind of interpret this as we have an $87 billion church, and then there is an investment auxiliary to the church that is $206 billion. Yeah, so you've got basically a $300 billion church, 2/3 of which, or a little more, is just for-profit, basically endeavors.
Wow. Essentially a $300 billion, that's billion with a B, $300 billion church. Maybe we should put church in quotes. The next key point he makes that I had not heard before is the following about more forms that the church likely did not file.
The whistleblower accuses the church of not filing what are called FBAR. I don't know what the right pronunciation is. It's FBAR, and it stands for Foreign Bank and Financial Accounts or something like that. I don't remember, but it's FBAR. So if you have an FBAR violation with the IRS, essentially what it's like aimed at preventing is you from sheltering all of your wealth from the United States. And so it's a really easy form, again, kind of feels a lot like the 13F form, but it's under the purview of the IRS rather than the SEC. And the penalties there have been a lot more FBAR violations in the past as opposed to 13F violations. And the violations have been extremely severe in some cases. So we're talking, like 20% of the portfolio kind of thing. And my understanding is that, the IRS is underfunded. And so they have a really hard time with compliance, but it's also very costly to pursue these types of things, right? So, think about the engagement that it would require. So this is always a trade-off for the IRS. There's been a lot of controversy surrounding this where, a lot of times the IRS will go after the 1040, the little people that are filling out a 1040 easy and they do it the wrong way because it's really, really easy to audit them and get their $5 that they needed to pay extra because it's just almost an automatic check, right, within their system. Whereas this kind of thing for the church would require a lot of investigation.
Now let's go to a clip where he talks about what the money is used for. Spoiler alert, it's not really used for anything except to make more money.
All the money that has been spent for the most part this year. So on the left-hand side is all the money coming in, and on the right-hand side is where all the money goes. And so on the right-hand side, you can see the source that's required for all of the money that goes out for its operating activities. So you think of BYU's education programs and building construction for temples and fast offerings and paying out humanitarian aid and utilities and buying the Kirtland Temple. All of those things could be paid for without really pulling anything out of the investment portfolio. So this is the problem with the policy is you have this rainy day fund that can never be used because you have a policy that doesn't allow you to use it.
This next clip talks about the church's charitable giving. I will give credit where credit is due.
That point that you look at right there, right when the scandals were all coming out and the church's wealth was being revealed, that was when the church decided to suddenly up its spending. And so it would be highly, highly coincidental that they would just be sitting on billions of dollars and then they would start to ramp up their spending, which, by the way, at this point is still less than 1% of their net worth at this point, right? As the data started coming out about the church's wealth, the church realized that they had a scandal in their hands, they looked bad, and they started to increase their giving. And that's what's kind of sad about this is that they've had all this wealth all along and they didn't just want to do it. They didn't want to give it up, is the way that I'm perceiving this. They didn't try to establish maybe what could have been one of the world's largest charities.
So the church has upped their charitable giving. However, they still donated less than 1% of their funds. Less than 1%. I have heard that Walmart donates a bigger percentage, and isn't in the business of suing small towns so that they can defy zoning laws. And now let's go to one more article about the church and its property. As part of a $195 million project to widen State Road 37 and build an interchange at I-15 and 1800 North in Clinton, Utah, the Utah Department of Transportation has acquired nearly all the property it needs to widen the road and add a 12-foot multi-use path over 100 parcels. But, according to the agency, 6 holdout owners remain. One of those is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who UDOT sued in Davis County's 2nd District Court earlier this month. The front yard of the Clinton North Ward at 1448 West, 1800 North is the disputed property in question. 1800 North in Clinton is SR 37, which will be widened from I-15 to 2000 West. Almost all of the Clinton North Ward building's front setback from the road will be gobbled up by the new road's footprint. Images show the church losing one and perhaps both of its curb cuts on 1800 North, which is the south side of its large parking lot. The project is fully funded, according to John Gleason, Director of Public Relations at UDOT. Construction may begin as early as this spring, he told us in an email. SR 37 connects with SR 34, the closest state road to the newly approved West Weber Inland Port, a planned 9,000-acre transportation warehouse and logistics hub located approximately 9 miles from the church property. And today, in light of recent events, let's finish up with this great quote that says, "The Mormon Church demands a standard of honesty, purity, and accountability from its members that it doesn't live up to. It has become a model of the hypocrisy that Christ condemned." And that's your update for today, folks. I absolutely hope you have the day that you deserve.